Hello and welcome. This is Reddit Tosker. Today we're going to be doing a review for MHRise Sunbreak. I did receive a free copy from Capcom early, so many thanks to them. However, this is going to be a preliminary review, and this is primarily for two reasons. The first is that while I have technically finished the game and reached the end credits, I have not as of yet reached Hunter rank 100, so I'll need more time before I'm comfortable speaking on the quality of the endgame. The second reason that this review is not going to be definitive or complete is because the endgame in a Monster Hunter game with title updates is subject to change. The roadmap for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak promises a lot of content before the end of the year, and I feel it would be premature to give this game a complete review until we see what that content does to the game, how it adds to the experience. Because of this, I'm going to be doing a second, more complete review a few months down the line. For this initial review, I'm going to be focusing mostly on what the game is like along the route to the endgame. And of course this review will be spoiler-free. Let's go ahead and get started. Let us first of all start with the most important part, which is of course the difficulty. A main criticism of the base Monster Hunter Rise experience was that the game was simply too easy. And there were many that hoped that Sunbreak would reliably fix that issue. Having now gone through the main story, I can reliably say that the difficulty in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is pretty good. The monsters do more damage, and their movesets are more complex and more interesting. It's also the case that many of them, especially the new ones, had better tracking, and I found them in general to be more capable of punishing you for ill-timed wirefall usage. Now this increased difficulty had some interesting effects on my playthrough. The higher damage made it more dangerous to get hit, more dangerous to remain in a low HP state. Even something like 65% HP was a little too close to one-shot territory for my taste. So I was constantly using healing items to top myself off, even in situations where I wouldn't have done that in base Monster Hunter Rise. Eventually the monsters started doing damage big enough that I felt it was necessary to craft master rank gear and take advantage of the increased defenses that gear brings you. But doing that resulted in me losing a lot of damage, because the high rank gear I was using before was fairly optimized. It was close to a meta set, and what I switched to was whatever hodgepodge pieces I could get my hands on. The main criteria I was looking for in that armor was defense, the skills were secondary, and that caused my damage to go down and the fights to take longer. The higher defense helped a lot with survivability, but with the fights taking longer, the opportunities for me to make repeated mistakes also went up, and in the end I noted a significant increase in the number of times that I carded. And there were even instances where I failed quests, a few of them a few times in a row. Now I don't want to give you the wrong impression, it isn't that hard. It's never overwhelmingly difficult, but it is much closer to what I would have wanted base Rise to be at. I don't expect overwhelming, brutal difficulty, at least until the endgame. But I think Sunbreak's difficulty is hard enough to be satisfying as you go along through the story. It was hard enough to make me engage with mechanics, which is what I've always wanted from my Monster Hunter games. It's specifically what I've always wanted. It was hard enough to make me want to create new sets whenever I had the opportunity, not just because I liked the look of them, or because I wanted to, but because I felt like I should. It was hard enough that it made the wirefall feel less like a get out of jail free card, and more like a necessary mechanic. It felt better integrated into the overall flow of the fights, and there were more opportunities for you to use it badly. And there were many times where I ended up grateful for wyvern riding, grateful for free damage that I could do from safety. And the best part about it is that as you go along through the story, there's never a point in Sunbreak where it goes back to Monster Hunter Rise standards. What I mean is that even if you upgrade your armor in Sunbreak to whatever currently is best at that time in the story, the damage that you'll take from the strongest monsters currently available to you is never in proportion to what it would have been in base Monster Hunter Rise. The damage in Sunbreak is always higher, and in my opinion, much better balanced. And so I suspect that most people that had a problem with how base Monster Hunter Rise handled difficulty will not have that same issue for Sunbreak, provided of course that the proper endgame is even harder, and that the inevitable title updates are harder still. To keep this review relatively spoiler-free, I'm not going to talk about the story in any real detail. I'm just going to give my broad general impressions. The story was pretty good. A lot better than Monster Hunter Rise, and probably a lot better than Monster Hunter World as well. The plot is simple, but it's consistent. And it had a lot of really good moments along the way. It kept my attention and my interest at a decent level throughout the whole thing. There was never a point where I found it particularly objectionable, or that I just wanted it to end. All in all, I found the story in Sunbreak to be absolutely tolerable. Now, does that mean that I liked it? Well, no, but it's a Monster Hunter game. Monster Hunter does not tell good narratives. In my opinion, Monster Hunter does its best storytelling through its atmosphere. That's really where it shines the brightest. But their actual in-game narrative, that they use words to tell, is typically very bad, and Sunbreak is sadly not the exception to this. Thankfully, though, the atmosphere in Sunbreak is actually pretty great. I enjoy the new hub area a lot more than I did Kamura. You can see every place from every other place, and as a result I ended up walking or wirebugging to those locations rather than teleporting with the map menu system. And I think this contributed to my liking this area and the characters that inhabit it a lot more than I did to the village and base Rise. The characters in Sunbreak are actually one of the highlights of the game. There's such an improvement to the characters in Monster Hunter Rise that it's kind of odd. I think the reason that I ended up liking them so much is because they have so many opportunities to show off their personalities thanks to them being followers in quests. Having them in quests is a lot more immersive. It really helped in getting me to care about these followers. If you bring multiple followers to a quest with you, they'll talk to each other. And sometimes when you complete a follower quest, the people that participated in it will have extra dialogue, and they'll talk about their concerns, their worries, or their relationship with other people. Things that aren't strictly about you. It's really nice to have something not strictly about you. It's really nice to not be flooded with overwhelming praise at all times with every interaction with the NPC characters. For example, Arlo thinks that Jay has amazing talent and just needs guidance. Luchika goes crazy when she's hunting monsters, becoming extremely happy and focused when she does it. And that intimidates other people and makes them not want to go hunting with her. And that personality trait of hers is actually reflected in the gameplay. The personality of the NPC followers are reflected in how they play. Luchika's follower description talks about how she's incredibly aggressive and always attacks and never takes the time to heal. And I think probably my favorite tidbit is when you find out that Rondine and her sister Fioraine have gotten an awkward relationship and have trouble talking to each other. And that they appreciate having you on the hunt with them because you can act as a kind of social lubricant. It's great, and it's not the kind of thing that I've come to expect from Monster Hunter. Several times during the main quest, a follower could help you out, and that was extremely cool, especially when they're in cutscenes. It was nice to see someone other than you, the main hunter, doing things in this supposedly large organization. If anything, for those same key quests, I would have liked if they let you take more people in. That you should have been able to take several of your followers into those quests, at least enough for a whole hunting party. That would have been fantastic. Now that they've done such a good job with the followers and the follower quests and having followers help you in key quests throughout the story, I really hope that they take that into their future games and Monster Hunter 6. Only in situations where it be context appropriate, of course, but especially in situations like this when you're a part of a larger organization or you're working with a large organization, for you to have some help during quests. So, in conclusion, my review for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is mostly positive. It is basically just Monster Hunter Rise, but more and better. And I appreciate the clear attempts that Sunbreak has made to address the problems that people had with the base game. The game is harder, the story is better. They didn't build on to the controversial rampage system, and instead chose to focus their resources on things like the follower system, which I like a great deal. Palicos and Palamutes, which previously had their passive skills locked into place, now can switch them out, allowing you to make builds for your buddies if you so choose. You're no longer forced to wyvern ride a monster if you don't want to. You can now scale any wall just by running up against it. They even managed to fix how talisman farms work, which was one of the biggest problems that people had in the base Monster Hunter Rise experience. The process is a lot more streamlined and less tedious now. I think I truly appreciate the clear attempts that Sunbreak made to listen to the complaints people had for base Rise and try as best as they can to address them in Sunbreak. And insofar as there are any problems left, I'm not convinced that they're problems at all, but rather features. For example, if you've come into Sunbreak and you think that the game is still too easy, then at this point I think it might not be a problem with Rise or with Sunbreak, but rather a problem with the game's design philosophy. And that can't be fixed, because it's not broken. Sunbreak, I think, is exactly what it wants to be. It wants your hunter to be overpowered. It wants you to have all this cool stuff to play and experiment with. It wants the player to feel like a badass. It wants the player to play like a badass. And if I'm right about that, then it's probably not possible to make this game satisfy somebody that wants to feel like they're at a disadvantage. Because I think that fundamentally that person doesn't actually want to play a harder Sunbreak. What they want is to not play Rise or Sunbreak at all. They want to play just an entirely different game, one that's trying to do something that Rise and Sunbreak aren't. Basically what I'm saying is that most of the flaws that remain in Sunbreak aren't really flaws. They're design choices that are meant to appeal to a certain demographic. And if Sunbreak isn't to your tastes, then I suspect what you really want is Monster Hunter World 2. You want Monster Hunter 6. And don't get me wrong, so do I. But I think we're just gonna have to wait for that. Alright, and that's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.